How's it going, guys? Hope you had a good day. Hope you had a good week. And I'm really excited to show you today's tutorial because I think both beginners and advanced producers could use these tips and tricks. If you do these, they're not certain rules, but if you follow these guidelines, this will really improve your chance of getting a track signed by labels and played out by DJs and clubs. Now, before I get into the video, I need to preface this by saying this is not guaranteed to get you signed. You still need to make a song that sounds good. I guess it goes without saying. But yeah, there are no guarantees here. These are only simple guidelines in my years of DJing and working with labels and getting my tracks signed by labels. This is the kind of things they look for and what I look for as a DJ. So with that said, let's get into Ableton and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so here we are in Ableton. This is my particular DAW of choice. And first off, we have this project file. This is actually an unreleased track that's signed to Tony H's label, Munchies After Dark, which is part of Late Night Munchies out of Seattle here. Yeah, it's unreleased, so I will not be playing the whole thing through. And actually, that's kind of a professionalism thing that it's not in my script, but it is something that labels look for. Is they look for artists that are able to maintain professionalism, so not making a track available for public download before it's released, that kind of thing, you know. And so I'll play this on my DJ streams, but I won't play this by itself in full until it's released. And that's just kind of a professionalism thing that I do, that I know a lot of my DJ friends that are on labels do, and that's just something that labels look for. So it's not in my script, but that is kind of a bonus tip, is to maintain professionalism, because that will increase your chance of getting signed for sure. Oh, and by the way, I made this on my Twitch stream, so I'll put a link up to my over here to my Twitch stream, because I do production like this every Wednesday at 7 p.m. So yeah, this actually started on my stream and now it's signed to a pretty big label. So first off, we have the mix in, or it's called the lead in sometimes. And this section right here, so this is this first kind of 24 bars. It depends on the genre. For quicker kind of bass music or drum and bass, sometimes they'll only have the first 8 bars, but it depends on the genre. This is a techno track, so it takes a little bit longer to develop and a little bit longer to mix in for the DJ. So these ones usually have at least 24 bars, if not 32, as the kind of mix-in section. So yeah, this particular one has 24, and I'll give you guys a quick listen. You want this section to be very simple and have lots of space so that the DJ can mix it in. And also you want a section with just the very basics of percussion. Like this one, I'll play it for you. Literally a kick and hi-hat, that's it. That is mainly used so that the DJ can just match the beat and maybe start to mix it in without having to worry about too many elements coming in too quickly. And so yeah, we have that part. Then you want a section where the bass and sub come in. So notice this didn't have any sub and bass, but this does here. Essentially the same, but now it's got the low end on it, and that allows the DJ to mix the highs of the previous track with the lows of the new track. That's kind of a fun, I like to do that in my DJ sets. I know a lot of my DJ friends do too. So if you're trying to make a track playable, you want kind of separate sections of your mix in that allow for that kind of thing. So it's kind of a subtle thing, but it is something. If you go and download extended versions of your favorite artist tracks, you'll notice those have it. And labels look for that when they go to sign tracks. So that's essentially it. This is not that complicated of a section. Just make sure you have space there. Now we get into the intro. So this is the first probably 8 to 24-ish bars of a song. And if you listen to a Spotify song, this is the first kind of what you'll hear. You want something to start the song off, but at the same time, still allow a lot of space. And for a DJ, kind of a special point, you want at least one part of it that's loopable. And by that, I mean on the kind of controller or CDJs that they use, they have a special loop button or a couple of buttons, and that allows them to extend the track by looping certain sections. I'll put a picture up here. The Pioneer one, if you hold the button, it's automatically a 1-bar loop. So that's probably the most common way, at least when I DJ, I do it, unless it's a special section that I want to loop 2 or 4 bars or whatever. So in each intro and break, you want at least one little section, at least 1 bar that the DJ can loop. And so if we listen here, notice that first bar, a little bit more than the first bar, had nothing else, only the high percussion and the kick. And then slowly, I'll play the rest of it here. So yeah, you want at least one loopable section, but still you want a progression into that first drop there. So it's kind of difficult depending on the genre. But yeah, you want at least those 2 parts so that DJs can easily loop it, but it still is interesting for the listener. So yeah, that's the intro. Then the first drop we have here, and this is kind of like the, I want to say like main introduction to a song that the listener, it's the first chance to dance basically for the listener in the club or on Spotify or whatever. And the main point of this is to make it interesting and make it danceable. But at the same time, you want to hold something for the last drop, or you want to hold something for, in this case, we have 3 drops. And so I'll go ahead and play a little bit here and show you what I mean. We'll start from the middle of it here. So yeah, there you go. It's heavy, it's got bass to it, and it's danceable, but it's not super busy, and especially in techno where you're going to be mixing songs in very slowly. Like even the first 64 bars, you'll probably have the previous song still going. So like in techno, you don't really want a full-fledged like drop chorus thing. But in other genres like bass house or some of the others, you can have a little more full first drop, but you still want to hold something for the last drop. And when labels go to sign songs, they look for that. They look for some sort of progression from the first drop all the way to the last drop. But yeah, so that's the first drop. And then next we have a break. So this serves a couple of functions. One, it gives the listener a break. Like if you're dancing, you don't want to be dancing the whole way through. You want some, it's got to go up and down. But also it gives the DJ an opportunity to mix out. By that I mean most DJs won't play every single song all the way through. You want to keep it interesting. You want to change up the pace. So oftentimes DJs will mix out from only the first drop, or only, the first, drop and a half or something like that. And this gives them kind of that like clean cut end of the first drop that they can start the next song on and then cleanly mix out. It's more common with like, say, bass music like future bass and dubstep, that kind of thing. You'll clearly hear at the end of the first drop, it cuts out and there's like space there, and you want to create that. And so, yeah, if we listen here, I'll play it just from the end of the first drop here. And again, it's loopable. You can make a clear loop out of this. So yeah, you also want a loopable section. This applies to the intro and each break. You also want something that the DJ can loop and extend to. So yeah, that's the break. And then after that, the drops you either make them more complex. Usually in techno or like progressive house is this way, where you make the drops more and more complicated as you go and kind of evolve them. So in this particular track, I introduce more and more elements as I go. So like this is the last part of this drop here. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, when you arrange the breaks of the song, you want to kind of manage the levels. So the higher the peaks, the lower the valleys that you want to kind of generally kind of develop energy, I guess, through the song. There are exceptions. So sometimes if you want to just keep it crazy, you'll see like a very short, heavy drop, especially in like, say, dubstep, and then a quick 8-bar break with not much of a break, you know, just like maybe less bass and that's it. And then another crazy drop. That is possible, but generally you'll see heavier drops and then longer breaks, or heavier drops and then more open breaks. And so here in this particular track, I've made a longer break from this one here. So I'll play kind of the first part of that here. Again, it's loopable here. And now it starts to evolve. So yeah, and also it depends on the genre, but a lot of kind of slower developing ones will have longer lead ups to the last drop. So that's the last break / last drop. And then finally we have the final drop. And there are a few different ways in this kind of deeper techno, I guess. You can have just the kick come in and then develop the last drop as it goes. But obviously if you have, for example, like drum and bass, oftentimes the last drop, you'll just hit him hard in the face, hit the listener hard in the face with that. So it depends on the genre, it depends on how you want to do it. But the main point is to have the most energy in the final drop. And then for the DJs, you want to have a section that is kind of like a lead out. So kind of the opposite of the mix in here. So yeah, here we go. This is the kind of mix out section. So notice a lot more space, and it allows more kind of high areas for the next track to come in. Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah, this is it. And it's also very loopable. You can take any one measure of this and just loop it. Except for the final one, I guess. But yeah, if they want to play it all the way through to the end, you want some sort of riser or something for the very end of it to kind of lead out there. But yeah, you want to make it very loopable overall in that mix out section. So yeah, that's the basics of song arrangement. Now I'll show you a different song that's already out. Actually, with the magic of editing, we can switch songs in 3, 2, 1. And we're in a new project. So this one is my track Sonorous. It's my most recent label release. It's on Arank Records. And yeah, I'll put a link in the description if you want to go check it out. I've also been putting this in my outros, so you've heard a taste of it if you've watched my previous tutorials. If we zoom out a little bit, you'll be able to see that we basically have the same kind of structure as the first one, even though it's a completely different genre. So I'll play kind of through the first drop here, and you can get a sense of what I mean. So this is from the intro here. Okay, that's I was like enjoying it. But yeah, this is the pre-master version, so it might sound a little bit different than what you heard before. But yeah, that's a very different thing from techno. This is a kind of electro bass house track, I guess. Yeah, as a DJ, for example, this lead-in section follows the same rule as the techno track. So we've got this here. Very empty. And that one actually has the bass on the kick, but it's not that big a deal. No bass line though, that's the important part. Then here, so yeah, it's got the elements of the song, but it's not the full thing, and it allows for mixing in. So it's got that. Obviously, it has a first and second drop. Only 2 drops, though. This also has another element that the techno track doesn't, and that's a fake drop. So if you like bass house, you'll probably understand what I mean by a fake drop. A lot of bass house tracks, and some other genres, depends on it, they'll have the first bar or a couple of bars of the second drop, it'll sound like the drop, but it'll have no bass and it'll sound super empty, and it's meant to like fake out the listener, because obviously the listener expects a heavy drop, but then when it doesn't come, you're just like, what? And then the real drop comes in. So I'll play that section for you. This is the last part of the second build up here.
Bass so heavy, make your motherfucking
So yeah, there you go. That's kind of another weapon in your toolkit, depending on the genre. And also another thing this track has that the techno track doesn't is a clear separation between the break and the build-up. And it was the case in the intro too. You could kind of hear it if you were paying attention to it. You have a section that is very open, very spaced out, and is very loopable, and kind of allows for a smooth transition out of the track if the DJ wants to mix out. And then you have a section that is clearly progressing to the drop. And so I'll play it kind of from the break here, and you can hear what this section sounds like, and then how it changes once it gets to the build-up. And once you get to the build-up, as a DJ, once you get to the build-up section, it's not really loopable. And that's just kind of part of the song. But this part is, so yeah, I want you to hear that.
heavy, make your motherfucking.
So yeah, there you go. This section is clearly spaced out, and then this one, the build-up is clearly building up, and it also has a lot more percussion to it. You'll notice there's a huge difference between the amount of percussion here and the amount of percussion here. Yeah, it's another kind of way to manage energy levels, I guess, too. Like I said, the break should be a break for the listener as well as the DJ. Yeah, there's that, but that's essentially it. Another thing, kind of the last thing in terms of making arrangement for DJs, is at the end of drops, depending on the genre. So like the techno track didn't really have this as much, but especially in bass house, tech house, a lot of bass music has this, and especially like drum and bass, is the last 8 bars of a drop don't have that much going on. And the reason why is you want a section that allows for the DJ to mix out and bring the next song in even before the end of the song. So in the first drop here, you'll hear a clear difference between the main part of the drop and this part here. So I'll start it from this part here, the main part of the drop, and you can hear the difference. And it's also pretty loopable. You could kind of, not this last part, but you could loop the first part. So yeah, there you go. It's a section that still has energy. It's still part of the drop, but it sounds okay on its own, but it has space for another song to be mixed in over it. So when I'm a DJ and I'm looking to download tracks, I look for things like that as well. Little pockets where I can mix in other songs if I want. So that will make it more appealing to DJs if you include that, depending on the genre, like I said. So yeah, that's basically it. If you follow those kinds of guidelines, your song will be much more appealing to DJs. And when a label listens to it, if it's got to sound good first, but if it's kind of on that borderline, but it has all of these features, it's going to be way more likely for a label to sign. So, yeah, that's basically it. All right. All right, so hopefully you learned something about making your tracks signable by labels and playable by DJs. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification so that you know when I post another one of these. I usually post these about once a week on Fridays. Also, if you want some quick memes or quick production tips or anything like that, be sure to follow me on social media. I think my links should be like right here, I think I'm pointing to. So yeah, follow me on social media. And you can also hear when I release my own music too, because I use these tips and tricks and guidelines in my own tracks too. So, all right, with that said, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you in the next one.